Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Are we seeing the maximum expansion and the beginning of the implosion of the American empire? This is a question which could come up because today we had the all important meeting between Chinese Premier Xi Jinping and United States President Donald Trump. And so you had seen meetings of President Trump with different world leaders and how they were jumping up and down and smiling and, uh, you know, uh, hands in the air. It was like a like a gospel meeting in a tent or something. All these people meeting President Trump. Can think of the Japanese, the new Japanese leader who was elected, who was just a ball of enthusiasm to receive President Trump, and so happy he was there. And then we have the meeting of President Trump with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping, first, he leaves President Trump on the stage, just standing there, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, slowly, without any rush, no jumping up and down, no hands in the air, no screaming, no pom poms, hooray, hooray, Trump is here today, or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, the difference between the Japanese leader and Xi Jinping was like night to day. And China came with one specific mission, and that is to put their foot down and stop the century of humiliation. And as China continues to put barriers to the United States power, then you can see clearly that China is putting a threshold upon after which the U.S. power will not expand, and the United States right now is starting to see this, I would say, maximum expansion. So anyway, it was pretty clear today from the meeting between Xi Jinping and President Trump that uh, kind of the buck stop here. Of Harry Truman, you could see Xi Jinping pulling out his own version of the buck stops here. And you have to think about, empires when they reach a maximum expansion. What is those clear signals that they begin to not only reach their maximum expansion, but they begin to show signs of deterioration and disintegration? Well, usually it's in either a financial war or a military battle. Um, and many times the maximum splendor of a empire is the last gasp of this empire to show to the world how beautiful and marvelous it was, and then it begins to plunge into darkness and it begins to implode. So we know that the Roman Empire reached its maximum expansion around the year 120, and then about 60 years later, it reached its maximum splendor under Marcus Aurelius, and it continued to limp on for another couple hundred years, but it was never quite the same. Began to have plagues and internal strife, a succession of one military dictator after another. And so, is this what's in the U.S. future? It's hard to say. But anyway, I can tell you that after World War II, and the United States basically took the reins of the whole world, along with the Soviet Union. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, there wasn't anyone to share power with. So the United States began on a fishing expedition among ex-Soviet republics to see where they could, catch a fish and add another trophy to the wall from the ex-Soviet republics. And you can say that they did pretty well, but right now you can see that Russia is pushing back on the United States, in this proxy war, and not only the United States, but the whole power of NATO. So the US, NATO, Ukraine isn't stronger than the United States, isn't stronger than Russia. And so there is another sign that the United States is reaching its maximum capacity. And so these signs began to worry President Trump, and he begins to post these weird and panicky Truth Social posts. Like the other day, President Putin of Russia spoke about the Bureveshnik, which is the I forgot how it's exactly translated, but it's a bird shadow. It's one of these birds that can fly, can stay in the air a very long time, and it's very stealthy. And Bureveshnik. So anyway, they let everyone know about the Bureveshnik, which has a nuclear-powered engine, basically can stay in the air for a very, very long time. You can imagine nuclear power lasts a long time. And also there's the Poseidon. And the Poseidon is a naval drone, and it can do all kinds of nasty things. So anyway, there wasn't any nuclear missile test like you used to see in the old reels of U.S. testing a nuclear weapon on a Pacific island, and the whole island just going up in a mushroom cloud. No, they simply said that they tested the functioning of the weapon as far as launching it, staying up in the air. They didn't actually test to see if it would detonate a nuclear bomb. But anyway, President Trump got all panicky, and he said, you know what, we're going to restart our nuclear tests. We're going to start them today. So anyway, you got this panicky Trump because he's starting to see that there's a big pushback in the U.S. power. And this pushback is a clear sign that the U.S. has kind of run its course as far as expanding its power on the planet, and it's starting to see a pushback from old powers which are renewing and coming forward to announce its arrival and its its place among the world leaders and the top world powers. So anyway, this causes great panic with President Trump, because he knows this is a very clear signal that the U.S.'s hegemon period is coming to an end. We know that the Persian Empire, when it was at its maximum power, tried to invade Greece several times, and really what was a very small area compared to the whole Persian Empire, they obsessed with the Greeks, and they wanted to take control of the Greeks, and they weren't able to do that. And this signaled the end of the Persian Empire. There were two different Persian leaders who tried to carry out these invasions. They were failed. And then when Alexander the Great came, then that was the final straw for that empire and for that political class that led the Persian Empire. The same thing happened for the Soviet Union when they invaded Afghanistan. It was a failed invasion. It showed that the Soviet Union was no longer able to wield an iron fist like it did in Hungary and Czechoslovakia during the rebellions. So that also signaled the end of the Soviet Union, and so now we're starting to see the United States that is being challenged not only economically but militarily. So anyway, you put all these factors together, and you're starting to see the picture of United States in panic mode. President Trump, proclaiming victory. Wow, we had, how was the meeting with Xi Jinping? It was 12 out of 10. Well, great. But did you sign anything? Did you agree to anything? No. We just agreed to disagree. And we will meet again in a year as time, more or less, to try to come up with an agreement. So the kicking the can down the road showed that the United States wasn't able to wield the influence on China that many had expected it to do. So now the United States continues to be dependent on China for rare earths, and China is slowly going through all these processes of separation from the United States, dependent on the United States for technology. That's really the last area where China still is dependent on the United States. And so once China is able to develop its technology independent of the United States and have technology at the same level, then they will completely separate, and we will see massive restrictions on the United States and vassal countries for all sorts of things like rare earths and other areas. So anyway, I would say that the signs are very clear that the United States is feeling that wall where it's reaching its maximum expansion. It's trying to bust down the wall. The wall is too thick. It doesn't have the power. And now it's starting to, now it's time to turn to the marketing and to the image creation to say we're the strongest. They blinked first. We won, and create all these crazy narratives that doesn't have a base in anything. So anyway, my report for today is the United States reaching its maximum expansion and beginning to implode? No, because the United States is still expanding in the Middle East with the Gulf countries. It still has a hope of trying to expand in Africa, in South America, and still has a hope of getting more a stronger alliance with India. But anyway, we're starting to see those signs that the United States doesn't have that infinite power it had around the year 2000 to 2010. And now this pushback is coming very clearly from China, from Russia. It will come from other countries as they begin to come out of the yoke or out of the chains of the U.S. hegemony to try to assert themselves as an independent, militarily or economically strong country. So anyway, this is the task of President Trump, to find a way to continue to maintain total control over the planet, and how to continue to expand U.S. hegemony in all parts of the world. You saw that he tried to get back into Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, where he could put strategic bombers to attack China, and then find a strategy to try to control China, to try to create some crisis in the country that would motivate a change of government. So anyway, So far, President Trump has struck out, but we're very early in his presidency, so we could see much more coming up. But anyway, the U.S. is starting to feel the very edge of that wall in its expansionary efforts. And after this, then as China and Russia and other countries begin to take their place among the world powers, the United States is going to have to get used to sharing power. And right now, I don't see any interest in sharing power. So that is my report for today. If you got to this point in the video, please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you back for future videos, and hopefully we can find more topics to talk about. So have a good day. Bye bye.